stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die. The First World War endured from 4 August 1914 until 11 November 1918. It represents the greatest loss of life and the greatest number of casualties in Australia's history. This year, it has been 110 years since the start of the Great War. A hurriedly assembled Australian naval and military expeditionary force captured and occupied German colonial outposts in New Guinea in September 1914. The Battle of Cenotaph was Australia's first action in the war. Most of the first AIF contingent of troops and nurses destined for the war in Europe left Albany in Western Australia on 1 November 1914. The force sailed in a convoy of 38 Australian transports or troop ships, 36 from Albany and 2 from Fremantle, that joined the convoy at sea. The convoy also included 10 New Zealand transports. The contingent included all the units that comprised a modern army: artillery, engineers, field ambulance, infantry, light horse. We have not, nor will we ever forget those who served and died. The First World War was the crucible in which our nation was forged. Just about every Australian was touched by the war. In a population of only 5,417,000 enlisted, 332,000 served overseas, 152,000 were wounded, and 61,000 never came home. Of men aged 18 to 42, almost 100,000, and of those who served were killed in action. Of the 270,000 who returned, more than half were wounded, and many more quietly carried the psychological scars and trauma until the end of their days. We must never, ever be mindful of the sacrifice, valour and dreadful triumph that was on the Western Front. It was absolute carnage. It was also the time, more than any other in history, that Australia and Australians helped shape the world. We must always remember the fallen and those who were often wounded or ill, and the families who cared for them in the months and years that followed. On this 110th anniversary of the declaration of war, Australia remembers the courage of those who sacrificed so much for our country. In the words of Charles Bean, the Australian Imperial Force is not dead. The army of great-hearted men, as he called them, lives on in the nation's memory. We will remember them. At Gallipoli, the Victoria Cross was awarded to 9 Australians and 1 New Zealander. They were Lance Corporal Albert Jacker, Lance Corporal Leonard Casaw, Lieutenant William John Simons, Corporal Alexander Stewart Burton, Lieutenant Frederick Harold Tubb, Corporal William Dunstan, Private John Hamilton, Captain Alfred John Shout, Second Lieutenant Hugo Vivian Hope Throssell, and from New Zealand, Lieutenant Colonel Cyril Royston Guyton Bassett. 4 words embody the spirit of ANZAC: courage, endurance, mateship, and sacrifice. And 3 words that stood the test of time, lest we forget. Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian Army Band is already in place, and the catafalque party from RAAF Base Richmond, under the command of Flight Lieutenant Barry Sutherland, are standing east of the Cenotaph and ready to march on. We also await the symbolic presence here of the founders of the Dawn Service, the arrival of the Legion banner. This one banner symbolically represents all of the founding Legion clubs which originally formed the ANZAC Day Dawn Service Trust. This banner is being carried by Pilot Officer Elizabeth Romy and leading aircraft woman Gemma Kosowski. They will march down Martin Place to take up their position on the northeastern end of the Cenotaph. Welcome to the 2024 dawn service here at Martin Place. With our official guests now here at the Cenotaph, we await the arrival of the Governor of New South Wales from the Pitt Street end of the Cenotaph. The Governor and Mr Wilson will be met and escorted by Mr Mick Bainbridge, President of RSL New South Wales. The catafalque party, under the command of Flight Lieutenant Barry Sutherland, will take post as sentries on each corner of the Cenotaph, and the service will commence. Australian pilots played a significant role in the First World War, serving with distinction in both the Australian Flying Corps and British flying units. Captain Harry Cobby, credited with 29 confirmed kills, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order and the Distinguished Flying Cross. Major Edgar Johnston, awarded the DSO and the Military Cross. Captain Roderick Dunce, awarded the DSO and the MC, and Captain Robert Little, the highest scoring Australian ace of the war, with 47 confirmed kills. 178 Australian pilots lost their lives during the First World War. It is important to remember the bravery and sacrifice of Australian pilots in that war. Their contributions played a vital role in the Allied victory and continue to inspire generations of Australians. The Australian Army Nursing Service had been formed in July 1903 as part of the Australian Army Medical Corps. During the war, 2,000 of its members served overseas. They worked in hospitals, on hospital ships and trains, or in casualty clearing stations closer to the front line. They served in locations from Britain to India to France and Belgium, the Mediterranean and the Middle East. 25 died during their service. Sadly, the Great War did not end with the silence of the guns. Across Australia, people resolved that the deaths would not be in vain. The Great War was to be the war to end all wars, but sadly, it wasn't then and isn't now. Siegfried Sassoon wrote, "Look down and swear by the slain of the war that you will never forget." Our nation's memories are on the headstones of the Australian soldiers buried overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who are able, would you please stand for Her Excellency the Governor of New South Wales, accompanied by Mr Wilson, who has arrived at the ceremonial area. Her Excellency will be met and escorted by Mr Mick Bainbridge, President of RSL New South Wales, and will move toward the Cenotaph in readiness to receive the Vice-Regal salute. Alongside our dignitaries and invited guests of the Cenotaph today, we warmly welcome the public on the northern and western sides of the Cenotaph and on the eastern side of the Lloyd Rees Fountain in Martin Place. We are heartened to see so many Australians with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing while the catafalque party from RAAF Base Richmond, under the command of Flight Lieutenant Baron Sutherland, take post at the Cenotaph.
Catafalque party, I turn. Catafalque party, slow. Catafalque party, halt. Catafalque party, outward. Catafalque party, rest on.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please be seated? One of the long-standing traditions at the ANZAC Day dawn service is the march-on of the ANZAC veterans. Veterans who marched to the Cenotaph each dawn service in decades past, and who, alas, are no longer with us. But the ANZACs live on. In this service, as we symbolically march on the ANZACs, to commence our service this morning, we march them on with sound effects and, of course, with our memories. Uncle Harry Alley to give the acknowledgement of country.
We gather today on land that is sacred. For thousands of years, people have gathered in this place to share stories, to celebrate culture, and to remember our ancestors. These rituals make it a sacred site, a precious inheritance of land and ceremony. Sacred to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians whose ancestors nurtured it through time. Today, we gather here at the Cenotaph in Martin Place, 109 years on from the landing of ANZAC Cove. As Indigenous Australians were not of European descent, they were exempt from military service during the time of the First World War, a war that saw over 400,000 Australians enlist. It has been estimated that up to 1,000, perhaps more, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people came forward to enlist. It is not known what motivated Indigenous Australians to enlist, but loyalty and patriotism without doubt played a part. I have had the honour and privilege of serving more than 2 decades in the Australian Air Force. Like me, many Indigenous Australians have been welcomed with dignity into service with our Defence Forces. Together, we can all take pride in the courage of those who have served over time and in our forebears who sought to build a new nation under southern stars, one of shared lands and of boundless opportunity. Today, we acknowledge that heritage with gratitude for its gifts to us all, placing hope in its legacy, and may we remember the sacrifices that made it possible. In that tradition, on this land, we will remember them.
Thank you, Harry. It is a dawn service tradition to hear the poem by Sidney Elliott Napier entitled Salute. In the First World War, he served with the 1st Australian Imperial Force. The poem was written when Napier was assistant editor of the Sydney Mail and was first published in that paper on the 21st of April 1937. In 2014, Salute was recited at the dawn service here in Martin Place and has since been read every year by the Premier of New South Wales. It is now my absolute pleasure to introduce to our ANZAC Day dawn service the Honourable Chris Means.
You who have loved will remember the sound of their farewell cheers, soothing but never arresting the march of your national fears. You who have loved will remember the glow of their glad young years as you stand today to salute them in silence, with pride and with tears. Out of the peace of the dawning into a fury of flame, up through the valley of shadow, to the light of the world they came, and bright on the roll of the nations, broad on the banner You who have loved, remember, though these whom you've loved have died, though the wearying years move onward, and the ways of the world are wide, though Gallipoli's graves may hold them, and her whispering waters hide, the years have no power to part you, nor the width of the world to divide. And today, as you stand to salute them, they too will be here at your side.
Thank you, Premier. We pause now for prayers to be offered by Chaplain Daniel B. from RAAF's Richmond, who will conclude his prayers with a prayer in the programme, after which we are invited to join in the repetition of the words, "May their sacrifice not be in vain."
In just a moment, we'll have the laying of the wreaths, followed by the Ode, the last post, a minute's silence, and Reveille. So a brief word of explanation. A memorial such as this one here represents our fallen. Memorials are made to symbolise before us the bodies of those who may have been lost or buried far away. And this memorial here symbolises them being before us today. In ancient times, the deceased body of someone important awaiting burial might be laid on a large platform known as a catafalque and guarded by soldiers. And that's why we have a catafalque party bearing arms around this memorial this morning, respectfully guarding and protecting the fallen. Wreaths have been used since ancient times to honour courage and bravery, as well as for mourning. If you were to stay in barracks, you'd be woken up each morning to the trumpet playing the Reveille and sent to sleep at night with the last post. But here, they are deliberately reversed. The last post is played first, which signifies our fallen have now gone to sleep in death. Our minute's silence is to let them rest, to not awaken them. The flag goes to half-mast, signifying our grief and loss. We collectively share in a minute of reflective silence for lost ones and the cost of their sacrifice. But then the silence is broken by the Reveille, a call to wake up. This is to express the hope that we have, that death is not the end. Instead, we look forward to new life. And so the flag returns to full mast, declaring that death is defeated and our grief is comforted by our hope. In the resurrection, there is life beyond the grave. Let us pray. Lord God, help us this day to remember the sacrifice of the first ANZACs, Australian and New Zealander. Help us to remember the generations of men, women and children who have died in the cause of liberty and peace. May their sacrifice not be in vain. Amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Air Vice Marshal Braz has had a distinguished career in the Royal Australian Air Force, graduate of the Australian Air Force Academy and the Australian Command and Staff College. He has held numerous operational roles and international assignments. He introduced the Super Hornet to the Australian service as commanding officer of the No. 1 Squadron. In 2015, he commanded the Australian Air Task Group in the Middle East region, earning the Distinguished Service Medal. In recent years, as commander of the Air Force Training Group, he oversaw the formation of the Air and Ground Academies, introduction of the PC-21 for basic and advanced flying training. In December 2019, he became the General, Military Strategic Commitments. This was followed by a promotion to Air Vice Marshal in July 2020. Air Vice Marshal Braz took up his current role as Air Commander Australia in July 2023. I now invite Air Vice Marshal Braz to deliver the ANZAC commemoration address.
Your Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Governor of New South Wales, Premier, Members of Parliament, sailors, soldiers and aviators both past and present, the families and loved ones of veterans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We gather in the quiet dark of dawn to remember Australia's first ANZACs. We landed on the shores of Gallipoli 109 years ago today. As we cast our thoughts to them, we think of them sailing away from the calm seas of safety toward the carnage and horror of war. We think of their youth. We think of their courage. We think of all they endured and everything they sacrificed. Some 2,000 Australians were killed or wounded on the 25th of April 1915, and more than 60,000 Australians would die throughout the First World War. When the Second World War brought more devastation and destruction, almost 40,000 more Australians would make the ultimate sacrifice. It is impossible to truly comprehend what those generations of Australians bore for our freedom. As the years between them and us continue to grow, as younger generations know our World War I and II veterans only by name and photograph, as most names on the roll of honour at our nation's war memorial tell the story of the collective loss of a generation, rather than stories of individuals we knew, let us never forget who they really were. They were ordinary young Australians who were asked to act with unthinkable courage in the face of unimaginable horror. Before they were sailors, soldiers and aviators, they patrolled our beaches and worked the land. They built new houses and developed our communities. They sat in university classrooms and taught in schools. They were sons and brothers and fathers. They were daughters and sisters. It is only by remembering them this way, as everyday Australians, that we can truly appreciate their gallant deeds and the enormity of what they endured and sacrificed. Our aviators of World War II are a good example. Our history tells the story of daring and audacious aircrew who fought in the skies with skill, bravery, and the utmost dedication to duty. But to truly appreciate their courage and extraordinary feats, it must be remembered that many Australian pilots in the Second World War had never been on a plane before they were tasked with the difficult job of training to fly one in combat. Flying Officer Arthur Mather was one of these everyday Australians who became a pilot in the Second World War. Before Mather knew war, he knew the streets of Sydney. Born in Parramatta, he went to school not far from here in Darlinghurst. But in September 1940, war called, and at 22 years of age, he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. 8 months later, he graduated as a pilot. He went on to serve in Bomber Command, which was the most dangerous theatre of operation for Australians serving during the Second World War. More than 1 in 3 Australian aviators in Bomber Command lost their lives. Luckily, he survived Bomber Command, Mather also served in the Middle East and North Africa. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for his courageous efforts against German forces. From Sydney schoolboy to decorated fighter pilot, Mather's story is just one of hundreds of thousands of stories of Australians and New Zealanders who fought at Gallipoli, but with conflicts since then, the meaning has evolved. Today, ANZAC Day honours all sailors, soldiers and aviators who have served in the Australian Defence Force. While World War I veterans are no longer with us, and there are few remaining from World War II in Korea, among us today, standing in this crowd, are veterans of Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as veterans of numerous peacekeeping missions. They too are everyday Australians who found within themselves the selflessness and courage to serve our country, to serve you, and protect our way of life. To these remarkable individuals, we say thank you. We also give thought to the families of veterans, especially those families who continue to grieve for their loved ones who have been lost in service. Finally, we honour and remember the more than 102,000 Australians who gave their life in service to our country. Their sacrifice has safeguarded our freedom, lest we forget.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand and join with soloist musician Viola Sartori, the Australian Army Band Sydney, and the Sydney Male Choir for the singing of the hymn, Abide With Me. This hymn has been a central feature of ANZAC Day commemorations since their beginning in 1916. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now sing the Royal Anthem of Australia, a long-standing tradition of our ANZAC Day dawn service. The This was sung by many of the veterans we honour here today. In 1984, the then Governor-General said the former anthem was to be named the Royal Anthem of Australia and played on appropriate occasions. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and join in the singing of the Royal Anthem of Australia with Corporal Stuart Fong and the Australian Army Band, Sydney. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I now invite the flag orderlies and the RSL Cenotaph attendants to take up their positions. And we now move on to one of the most significant and solemn segments of this morning's ANZAC Day dawn service, the dedication. It is my pleasure to invite Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, Governor of New South Wales, to offer the ANZAC dedication for 2024. Following the dedication, Her Excellency will lead invited guests in the laying of tributes on the Cenotaph. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency the Governor of New South Wales.
At this hour, upon the 25th day of April in 1915, ANZAC became one of the immortal names in history. We who are gathered here think of those who went out to the battlefields of all wars, but did not return. We feel them still near us in spirit. We wish to be worthy of their great sacrifice. Let us therefore once more dedicate ourselves to the ideals for which they died. As the dawn is even now about to pierce the night, so let their memory inspire us to work for the coming new light into the dark places of the world.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The Cenotaph will now be the focus for our wreath laying. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand as the first tributes are laid on the Cenotaph. Representing the original ANZACs, these tributes will be placed by Her Excellency the Governor on behalf of the people of New South Wales, accompanied by Mr Dennis Wilson, together with Mr Bill Dobby, Consul General of New Zealand, on behalf of the people of New Zealand. South Wales, the Honourable Chris Minns, the Leader of the New South Wales Opposition, the Honourable Mark Speakman, and representing the Lord Mayor of Sydney, the Right Honourable Clover Moore, will be for Councillor Imelda Davis. Representing the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Tanya Pliberzak, and representing the position, Mrs. Melissa McIntosh. The President of RSL New South Wales, Mr. Mick Bainbridge. Members of the Consular and Diplomatic Corps, the Honourable Consul of Belgium, Mr. Jason Collins, representing the Consul General of Canada, Mr. Nicolas Jacquemin, and Consul General of France, Monsieur Martin Gilliard, Consul General of Turkey, Mr. Ali Seven, Consul General of the United Kingdom, Ms. Louise Cantillion, and Consul General of the United States of America, Ms. Christine Elder. Chair of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Veterans Commemoration, Mr. Harry Alley, representing Australian War Widows, New South Wales, Queen Dunbar, representing Sydney Legacy, Ian Thompson. President of the ANZAC Day Dawn Service Trust and Vice President of Australian Intelligence Corps Association, New South Wales, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Sinclair, President of the Royal Australian Air Force Association, Mr. Ron Blue. Representing the Commander, Australian Fleet, Commodore Raymond Leggett. Representing the Commander, Forces Command, Brigadier Sean Parks. And Air Commander Australia, Air Vice Marshal Glenn Braggs. Representing the Emergency Services, New South Wales Police Force, Commissioner Karen Webb. Fire and Rescue New South Wales, Commissioner Jeremy Futrell. New South Wales Ambulance Service, Commissioner Dominic Morgan. New South Wales Emergency Services Commissioner Carleen York, Rural Fire Service New South Wales Deputy Commissioner Kylie Stewart, St John Ambulance Commissioner Ian Novia, Corrective Services New South Wales Superintendent Adam Wilkinson. Representing the youth of Australia, Junior Legatee Amelia Hearn. Representing Scouts Australia and Girl Guides Australia, Senior Guide Sonia Amasol and Adventurer Scout Jack Baker. Member organisations of the ANZAC Day Dawn Service Trust, Royal Australian Army Nursing Corps Association New South Wales and ACT, Major Eileen Henderson, retired, Royal United Services Institute for Defence and Security Studies New South Wales, Major General Paul Irving, retired, New South Wales National Servicemen's Association and affiliates, Major Ron White, retired. Merchant Navy Association, Mr. Robert McMahon, the Gallipoli Memorial Club, Mr. John Robertson, Capital Vale Ex-Active Servicemen's Memorial Club, Mr. Robert Berrington. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the recitation of the Ode by President of RSL New South Wales, Mr. Mick Bainbridge, and Junior Legatee Amelia Hearn. First, a word explanation. 2 verses of the Ode will be offered, and immediately following, your repetition of the words, lest we forget. The last post will then be sounded, followed by 1 minute of reflective silence. At the conclusion of the minute's silence, the Reveille will be sounded. I would ask that you remain standing for the sounding of the last post to be sounded by bugler Lance Corporal Imogen Barker. Then remain standing for 1 minute's reflective silence, and then the sounding of Reveille. The Ode to the Fallen will now be offered by Amelia Hearn and Mr. Mick Bainbridge.
They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of leg, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end, against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe.
They shall grow to roll as we that left grow old. Age shall not weary them, all the years condemn. At the going down of the sun,
catafalque, retain.
Ladies and gentlemen, and again for those who are able, please remain standing and join our vocalists, the band and choir for the singing of the Recession, which was written as an ode by Rudyard Kipling to Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee and became the imperial hymn. It was first used in commemorations of those killed in the Boer War. Ladies and gentlemen, the Recession. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. ANZAC Day is a joint tradition shared by both Australia and New Zealand for over 100 years. We welcome the many New Zealanders with us this morning. I'm very pleased to introduce to this morning's service the Song of Sorrow, a traditional Maori hymn sung by the Sydney Maori Choir, a choir composed of New Zealanders now living in Sydney. Ladies and gentlemen, the Song of Sorrow. singing of There Is No Death by the Sydney Male Choir. This was sung by the choir for the first time at the 1935 ANZAC Day Dawn service. The Sydney Male Choir has supported the dawn service every year since 1933. This is a remarkable record of support for the ANZAC Day Dawn service and very much appreciated. The song was published in 1919 by Gordon Johnston. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sydney Male Choir. Ladies and gentlemen, Chaplain Daniel Bigg will now offer the benediction.
The benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he show his kindness to you and have mercy on you. May the Lord watch over you and give you peace. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand and join with the national anthem, which will be sung in Maori and English, followed by the Australian national anthem. And please, I invite you to sing along.
Catafalque, present. Catafalque party, attend.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please remain standing while the catafalque party dismount from their posts here at the Cenotaph.
Catafalque party, inward. Catafalque party, queen. March. One. Catafalque party. Hop. Catafalque party. Tears. Next.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please remain standing while Her Excellency the Governor of New South Wales and Mr Wilson depart from the Cenotaph precinct. Ladies and gentlemen, the Banner Party and the Australian Army Band Sydney will now retire from the Cenotaph precinct. organisations and individuals. Australian Defence Force, the RSL New South Wales Cenotaph attendants, Hills District Pipe Band, Legacy Sydney, Scouts Australia and Girl Guides Australia, St John Ambulance, Sydney Male Choir, Sydney Maori Choir, the Fortin Hotel, and Mr. Harry Alley. And following the ANZAC Day March, I really hope you may be able to join us at the ANZAC Day commemoration at the ANZAC Memorial, commencing at 12:30 this afternoon, and then most importantly, the sunset service back here at the Cenotaph at 5 p.m. Also, I certainly hope we see you at this solemn service again